Joining us from Australia, Jullius Malama. Good to see you, buddy.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. How long ago did you move back to Australia? Because you lived in Steinbach for quite a while, very involved with Island Breeze. How long have you been
Yeah.
back in Australia?
So we moved here 2 years ago. So it's been quite a transition. I mean, it's something we're used to, but we lived in Canada for almost 10 years, and then it was like time to come home. So we kind of just hit the ground running, just back to what we did before we left.
Yeah. So what are you doing out there? Are you doing YWAM like you were doing out here?
We're still involved with YWAM and Island Breeze in some degree, not just as full time as we were in Steinbach. We just got back from a holiday. We were just celebrating 40 years of Island Breeze International, and so we're still involved.
Oh, very exciting. Oh, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
So you've been in Australia now for 2 years, and
Mm-hmm.
you were there then at the start of the pandemic when we first started hearing the words COVID-19 and coronavirus and
Yep.
pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
to the
Yep.
point where the numbers, like, how bad did it get in Australia, numbers wise for COVID?
You know, well, because it's a massive place, Australia, and where I live in Queensland, the numbers didn't get up too high. I mean, it wasn't that high at all. But in other places, it was pretty scary. And then because we're just borders away, it made sense what the government did here was shutting down borders and just restricting movement. So where we live, we were affected, but not as bad as places like Victoria. Victoria, they were shut down for 15 weeks, not allowed out. Just it's like it really has to mess with you mentally, eh?
So when you say shut down, were they under lockdown? Were people like locked down in their houses, or to what extent did they have lockdown in Australia?
So lockdown would have been, I mean, you just weren't allowed to go out. You were allowed 1 hour a day outside of the house for exercise and just pick up necessities or essentials, and that was it. You weren't allowed to go and see people. You wouldn't just basically no contact with anyone, just so we can get a handle on it.
And you were under those lockdowns where you lived as well, or was that just in other areas?
That was just another area where we had lockdown for maybe we just come off a 3-day lockdown, and that was 3 days just because we experienced there was somebody who contracted the new strain of it, and straight away we got the 3-day lockdown. Everybody was okay. This is what we got to do. Everybody stayed home for 3 days, and then when we did get the release, there were mandatory masks that we had to wear, and so it's just you got to do what you got to do, and then it's over. It's done.
Yeah. What is the mentality in Australia when these restrictions come and everybody has to comply? Are people pretty eager to just do their part, or is there a lot of complaining and resistance?
It's depending on where you look. I mean, in Victoria, they had a massive lockdown, so you could understand the resistance. Where I was, there was the where I am now, the resistance wasn't much because it was 3 days. So I mean, you give and take, and so we live in a pretty good community. Everybody looks out for each other. Wear your mask, stay away. Those are the good things that help to reduce this. And so everywhere you go, you get your pockets of people who kind of resist, but for the most part, everybody just abides.
Yeah. So now Australia's numbers overall right now are quite good, aren't they, compared to other countries? What's it like there now?
We're getting used to the new normal. When before the pandemic, if people wore masks, you kind of look at them sideways. Now it's normal. I mean, we don't need to. It's not mandatory to wear masks now, but people still do. You just get to stay on the safe side, and it's just the new normal. You stay away from people. One of the biggest things is you can't go sit at a restaurant without signing in. Without you used to be able to do it manually, but now they've got an app where they track you everywhere you go. So if you come into contact, then it makes it easier for the authorities to be like, oh, you came into contact with this place, you were here when this person had it, and so in that respect, it's very good.
So what's it like though in the stores and in the malls, and when you're like, are people still distancing, or is it almost back to normal? You got a few people still wearing masks, but is it pretty close to normal?
It's very, they're like you're in the mall and every 10 minutes, because I work in the grocery stores. Every 10 minutes there's an announcement that comes over, please keep your distance, and it's kind of like the friendly voice at the airport that you hear.
Yeah.
Just make sure you keep your distance. And every store, they got the sanitizer, they got the things in place, and then it's just a matter of teaching the community how to not, breathe over other people, cough, all that sort of stuff. And so,
well, there will be a heightened awareness, I think, even long after coronavirus is somewhat contained. I think people are still always going to have that you remember that it's probably safer to keep distance. But in Australia, are they holding concerts? Are there events? Are there banquets? Can you get your groups together with YWAM and Island Breeze? Like, are you still able to get together in groups of people?
Yes, we can. In a nutshell, we can, and it's only because we did the hard yards in the beginning. When news came out, there was like a new strain of something. The government put a lockdown. It was hard. We did it, but now we've done it. They've got a handle on it. There were 3 new cases, but all of them are in quarantine, so they know where it is, and so it makes sense that you can open up now. And so I just mentioned earlier that I just came back from a kind of a conference retreat type thing, and it was just like nothing happened. It was back to normal. There's no there's social distancing, but it's not as strict as nations that are really struggling with the numbers now.
That must have felt really good to be that close to people again.
Oh, it definitely is. And my nature, like my love language is I love hugs, and that's just me. And so when the social distancing came in, it was just kind of something I had to learn. I was like, okay, but you work with it, and it's where we're at right now, and you just got to do your part.
Yeah. I'm cut of the same cloth. I speak the same language of hugs. And so when all of this has happened and is still happening, it's hard not to go and like hug your friends, hug your mom. It's like, but I think, like you were saying, if everybody does their part, just do what we have to do now, it will come back. Now, being an island, it's got to be easier for them to protect the borders and contain things, a lot easier than here in Manitoba.
That definitely helps. We got a really big border, and so it's hard to get in. It's also hard to get out. So they've put restrictions on. We can't leave the country. Nobody can come in, and if you do, it's really strict. You get put in the 2 weeks quarantine. We're hoping that New Zealand and Australia could have a bubble where they can travel between each other without the quarantine. So it looked promising a few weeks ago, and then we had the 3-day lockdown, and then it's just gone back to square one. And so kind of get your hopes up, and then it's like, okay, then not really.
Yeah.
So we just got to keep doing our part.
So you're not out of the woods, but you can see an end to it.
That's exactly it. You hit the nail on the head. We can see the end to it, but we just got to not lose focus and just keep playing our part.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Jullius, it is so glad to visit with you again. I remember when you left 2 years ago and you joined me on the morning show and and saying goodbye to the community. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to here in southeastern Manitoba?
Just, what, Steinbach is a big place in my heart there. And so shout out to all my family and friends in Steinbach, Ron and staff, the Island Breeze crew, EC and Tessa Mussy. Miss and love you guys. Praying for you guys in the community. We stand with you guys here in Australia.
Thank you, my friend. Good to see you again. All the best.
Thank you so much for having me.